Hey guys, I hope that your exam went well yesterday. I'm sorry that I can't be there today with y'all, but I am somewhere grading all your exams, so this way report cards can go out and we can all have a lovely spring break. Um, I know this is one of the creepier things that I have done because it's not like you're watching this on your own. You're watching this in class, but I'm not there, and there's a teacher that's not me that's facilitating this, but you're still hearing my voice. Just like try to bear with it. It's been a long, long march for all of us. Just let's roll with day 85, jump right in, and let's make this work the next 2 days. Um, so we're going to kick it off with trying to remember what we were talking about right before exams with the Gilded Age and do a little exercise over the course of the next 2 days focused on visual and graphic analysis that hopefully you guys will have a little bit of fun with and some good practice for us going into T3. So whoever is subbing, if you could just pause this, make sure that folks have the learning goal down, that would be great. Great, so we will go to the next slide, which is our activator. So, what's that Gilded Age thing again? Again, whoever is subbing, I'm going to ask that you pause this video for about 5 minutes so that folks, you can take about 3 minutes of think and write time. And in that, try to look back at your notes from the end of T2, from some of the things that we discussed about the Gilded Age. Think about what is the Gilded Age. So when we say the Gilded Age, what time of the U.S. history are we talking about? What's happening during that time? What maybe people or kind of types of characters that we learned about? What things were going on at this stage? What do we know about the Gilded Age? So take about 3 minutes of think and write time, and then we'll take about 2 minutes to share out, make sure that we're all on our same page, thinking through and refreshing our memories, taking out those exam cobwebs, and remembering what is the Gilded Age all about. So those 5 minutes went by quickly, right? Great. So hopefully what I would have been hearing if I were there is that you all were saying that the Gilded Age is a time where gilded, meaning looks like gold but is not actually gold. Things were looking real good, but there was a really dark underbelly to what was happening. So we think back to our conversations about robber barons and captains of industry, how there was booming in second industrial revolution, but in the booming of our economy and the booming of industry, there were workers that were not getting treated well, as we talked about with the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. And we read some of the excerpts from workers' firsthand accounts of their working experiences. We talked about some of the dangers of those working environments. We talked about people getting wealthy, big businessmen really controlling the economy and politics at the time, and really having a handle on everything that was happening in this country and making sure that they were getting rich off of the backs of the poor. We also might remember from our flipped classrooms on immigration about how our immigration boom was going on. A lot of them became the workers and how they were all connected to politics and to business at that time. So, keeping all that in mind, now that we have refreshed ourselves on the Gilded Age, we're going to think to how we can analyze graphs that showcase different trends and statistics from this era, as well as some photographic images and political cartoons. Now, political cartoons are something that we're going to start seeing a lot in U.S. history class that we haven't really seen before. And so there's a lot of different layers to them. So what we're going to do is on your first page of the packet that your lovely sub has provided for you, you'll see that there's a thing called I, parentheses, Misty, do. So that's a cartoon that we're going to go over in the next slide and work through together. Then you'll see I'll go through and explain the instructions for what's going on in the rest of your packet, which will take us through the rest of class today and then into tomorrow. So let's go to that next, that first page that I do, where you see this cartoon. Great. So you'll see on your page that there is a space for observations and then a space for inferences. So let's just first just focus on observations, meaning what do we actually see? Now I know that some of our our gut is to like start jumping and making inferences. But right now I want us to just list out all of the things that we actually see in this image. So whoever is subbing, if you could just pause this for a second so that folks can get down their observations before I start talking about mine. This way we can get a sense of what the team is getting from this image. So hopefully some of the things that you may have observed are that these really, really big guys over here with kind of like grumpy faces are these huge money bags, right? And they all have on them names of different big industries like Standard Oil, iron, copper, steel beam, nail, right? Sugar, all these big, big money-making fueling machines, right? So then we also might see entrance for monopolist. So they're all coming on in. Entrance is wide open. Now this is a little bit difficult, but up here it says people's entrance closed, and it's real tiny. So we're seeing that the people's entrance is closed. We're also seeing that this sign says this is the Senate. And now this is a little bit blurry, but it says of the monopolist, by the monopolists, for the monopolists. This is the Senate. So that's something key to keep in mind. And then you also see then, if this is the Senate, these are all the senators. And so you see them all kind of looking up to these guys. You see them looking real meek and tiny, especially in comparison to all of them, right? They just look like weak and old, and they are very much facing them and kind of looking back at them. You're also seeing that the title of this cartoon is called The Bosses of the Senate. So that's something to keep in mind. Great. So maybe there were some other observations, just actual things that you're seeing. I've had people mention before that they notice that they're wearing different types of hats. I don't really know if that means anything, but, something to point out. But how about inferences? So again, whoever is subbing, if you don't mind pausing this video for a few minutes so that folks can jot down what they're inferring. And now remember, how do we infer? We look at our observations and we're saying, based off of this observation, I can infer that this thing is being said about this thing. So let's take a moment to work on some of our inferences, and then we'll come back and I'll share some of mine. So hopefully some of you could infer that based off of the body language of the senators, based off of the size of the senators compared to all of these industry monopolies, that the monopolies were really the big men here that controlled the Senate. They were big, they were imposing, they're looking down upon the senators, that they really are small in comparison to business, which was really controlling all things political, all things U.S. at this time. Maybe you could also infer that the Senate, which we know from past units, is that the Senate was made to represent the people of the United States, right? So if they're saying that the Senate is for the monopolist, then we can infer that the Senate was no longer working in the best interest of the people, of the average person. So in this case, especially, we're thinking about those workers, right? We're thinking about some of the workers that we learned earlier this unit and some of those conditions. They don't have those best interests in mind. Instead, they're looking to these big money bags who are holding the purse strings, controlling them, controlling the economy, controlling the politics, and looking for them and working for them and their best interests, not the people's. We can also infer that based off of the people's entrance being closed, but the entrance for the monopolist to come into the Senate being wide open. The people are being forgotten about, and our country is being run by those big old money bags, people only in it for the money, not for the good of the country. We can also infer that purely based off the name, right? The bosses of the Senate. So who in this case is the boss? Who's controlling them, making sure that they're doing what they say? These big old monopolies, these industrial monopolies. That process that we just did of looking at something, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's a photograph, whether it's a graph, where we start making some observations and then making inferences, that's what we're going to be practicing today. That's that skill that we're going to be working on for individual documents. So here are the instructions for today. If I can turn the page. There we go. So in the next slide, I have you split up into groups. So you'll see on that next page after the I do document that there's a little bit of a chart, and it's split up into A, B, D, E, F, G sets of documents, right? And then there's space to think about if it's a cause or effect, and then space to explain. So what we're going to do today is that in the rest of that packet, you'll see those different documents that are associated with A, B, D, E, F, G, and you're going to see what you're assigned to. So on the back of your assigned document, you're going to annotate it for observations, for inferences, and then you're going to start thinking about, okay, this document, whether it's a graph, whether it's a photograph, whether it's a cartoon, is this talking about a social, a political, or an economic cause, or a social, political, or economic effect of the Industrial Revolution? So if we go back to this document that we just worked on, we're seeing that these big businesses that were booming because of this in Second Industrial Revolution are now controlling the Senate. So you might say, this is representing, this cartoon is representing an effect of the Industrial Revolution. These guys became into a lot of money, into a lot of power, and because of that power in the Industrial Revolution boom, they were now able to control the Senate, and now our country was moving more into a direction of playing to the businessmen rather than playing to the people like they were supposed to. So you might say Miss D's example, the I do example, was an effect of the Industrial Revolution because of the reasons that I just stated. And that can be in a political effect, right? Because we're talking about how the Industrial Revolution is affecting the politics of the time. So you're going to look at your documents and try to make those assumptions as well. What is this document showing? A political, social, or economic cause or effect of the Industrial Revolution. So take notes on your own. Then when you're done, you're going to go to your other group members that worked on those same documents and share out amongst each other. So did you all observe the same thing? Did you make the same kind of inferences? And then how can you come to an agreement on whether it shows a cause or effect? Now, be prepared to show your findings in class tomorrow and be able to explain why your document shows that cause or effect of the Industrial Revolution. And we'll go over some of these together. So here are your groups. If anyone's absent, just go with the rest of the people that are actually present and just get to work. Note that there is no C group. It would have taken me too long to edit the document it was me being a little bit lazy, but I think after the craziness of this exam week, that's okay. So split on up, get to work, use each other as really good resources, and then we'll have some time to go over all this tomorrow. Hope you all are doing well. I'm hoping that while you're listening to this, I'm busting through your grading and being so pleased with how much work you put all into this, and that we will all come together for our last day before spring break. Happy to be back finally together in U.S. history class. Keep up the good work, folks. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.